Welcome to Better, the podcast about doing better, being better, and leaving the world a better place than we found it.
Hello. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to Better. Do better, be better, make the world a better place. I am Jay. I'm your host. And we're trying to do different frames of mind, different perspectives of better. So if you guys have noticed, we started off with, stories of people and their personal journeys being better. We talked about relationships, how to be better relationships. We talked about, lying. We've talked to soldiers who had to make really harsh decisions in war. Man, we've talked to a good rounded group of people, and my personal podcast, the ones where it's just me, have been very interesting. The feedback has been at times really great, and at times not so much. And that's kind of the great thing about having open communication, is that we can have these conversations. People with different mindsets and different viewpoints can talk it out, and communication being the key, right? This one is going to be more about a subject which is near and dear to my heart, entrepreneurship. And my guest is Josh Giesbrecht. How's it going?
Very good, Jay. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming. So the reason I want to talk to you is because you have... So how old are you right now?
32.
32.
33 next month.
30. Oh, well, happy early birthday.
On the cusp of being 33.
Okay. How do you feel about that?
Better. Literally no pun intended, but better about it than I was 6 months ago. Because 6 months ago, I was like, well, if I basically just was in the process of founding, 3 failed companies, then that's, not much to celebrate on 33rd.
Yeah.
But, I feel a lot better about it now.
Right.
At 33. Actually having one that's really working out, that's something I can hang my hat on.
Right. Okay.
And everyone does this, and obviously everyone says you shouldn't do it, but we all compare ourselves to others.
Yeah.
And that's both good and bad. I mean, if you don't compare yourself to anyone, that's not good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you hang all your hopes on that, that's also not good. But I think I do compare myself to other people in my age bracket, and I feel like, well, I'm not at the bottom or even in the middle, which is always my goal, is to kind of be in that upper percentile,
right?
Of success, and that can mean many different things.
Yeah, of course. So success is definitely a personal journey, personal goals, personal all that. So you said 3 failed businesses.
Yeah.
So 3 lessons.
Yeah.
That's how
sure. Scar tissue.
Yeah, absolutely.
3 deep scar tissues.
So when I've talked to you, because sometimes I'll stop by, we'll talk about the current business in a bit. So sometimes I stop by, we've had conversation. I'm like, man, this guy's journey is very similar to my journey. I've had, it's funny because, I'm going through funding round, trying to get funding, and I'll talk to people about I exited from a couple. I always found it weird to say I exited from companies, because I did have
I've used that terminology.
Yeah, I've had some small exits where,
force exits.
Yeah, well, some force for sure, yeah. A lot of times I didn't know what I had, and that was my biggest mistake, my biggest flaw. Like with Fill the Heat, I had a database of like 100,000 something Winnipeg teenagers who have all now gone on to buy houses, cars, have kids, all these things. Like, and I know what I had.
Yeah,
I could have kept that rolling forever.
You just kind of.
I just sold it for like next to nothing. Yeah. Not next to nothing, but what I felt in the time was a huge piece of money for me. So do you look at failure, those 3 failed businesses, as lessons, or do you have, like, how do you, when you look back at them, it's 3 a.m., you can't sleep, you're up, and these things start to dawn on you. How do you reflect on them? What do you think? What's in your head?
Well, I think it depends on which one. So if it's the very first one, which honestly in most settings, I don't use this as my first.
Okay.
Because it was so small.
What was the first one?
So the first one technically was a company called Edwards Valcourt, EVR. And really what it was a CBD brokerage. And that one obviously doesn't keep me up at night ever, because it was so small. But actually, that one wasn't like some catastrophic failure and arguably the benefits of having done it are still rippling.
Right.
You know, so that one that was never been one of the ones where I'm like, what was I doing, or I should have done this differently, or I regret this. You know, fast forward to Exchange PP, that one, you know, that one too, it wasn't one, because we knew it was short term.
Yeah.
Right. And
I wouldn't consider that failure at all.
Yeah. No, but
from what I've seen, I haven't
for sure. But I look back and I was like, man, I was pretty sloppy, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
If I had known what I know now.
You're like, you feel the heat. You're like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, we would have made more money. We would have done this differently. No, but overall, money-wise, PR-wise, wasn't a failure.
Yeah.
And we knew it would end, because the pandemic will end, whether it was through a vaccine or it just runs its course. It will end one day.
Everybody dies.
Yeah, or we all die. You know,
Some way that was gonna end.
You know, the bank account's healthy, but we all die anyway.
Yeah.
You know, and so we knew it was going to end, and obviously when the vaccine got announced, we just knew, okay, there's time. So that one wasn't like a surprise failure. I'm
surprised you consider that one a failure.
Yeah, I don't. Okay, maybe because I'm trying to think the three. So EVR, even that, I guess technically really wasn't a failure. Exchange PP technically wasn't a failure. But that being said, I learned lessons.
Yeah.
Dramatically, and not to say that now, like, oh, I have it all figured out, but I really knew lesson zero, right at that point. Whereas now it's like, okay, I know some things. I mean, Uncle Sam's was arguably a failure,
right? Okay,
but that one still is playing itself out, right? Because I filed a lawsuit. My business partner that broke a contract, so that one's still playing itself out technically, even though from a business standpoint it ended long ago.
Right.
But even that one, I don't, you know, because often even the self-criticism is you grew too fast. But I'm like, well, that was the point of the agreement.
Yeah.
The point of the agreement was to expand rapidly.
Skip the baby steps.
You skip the baby steps and then sell before the market blows up.
Right.
And he did sell before the market blew up. You know, it just didn't include me in on it. And that one, honestly, I learned by far the biggest lessons.
Right.
Whereas from the legal standpoint, running a business to, you know, honestly, in my view, getting good PR, all of it's hard, but getting good PR is not the hard part. Managing bad PR is the hard part. You know?
Well, I know it.
Yeah. And that is the true difficult part.
Yeah.
You know, I would argue anyone, if they put enough effort and did enough crazy things, you can get some form of good PR.
Yeah.
But to manage bad PR is hard, which there was bad PR in that. And then Ashdown Cannabis, which was what turned into Ashdown Market. I mean, Ashdown Cannabis was going to be a failure if we didn't do something drastic. Right. And then the one in between that was a failure was THC, the hemp circle, because it never, yes, we won the license after a very dramatic battle, but we didn't get any capitalization. It never was operational in any meaningful sense.
Yeah.
I did learn a lot of good lessons though through that too.
Well, that's. I mean, I've had
the most hurtful ones.
Yeah,
were the ones where I walk away from like, wow, did I gain a lot of new skill sets that I didn't have before.
Of course.
Yeah.
I can't. I have no idea how many businesses I've started. You know, I definitely. I was when I was talking to these new investors. They said, "Why now?" And I said, "Because I'm the best entrepreneur I've ever been."
Right.
And I feel that the only reason I am is because of all the harsh lessons I had to learn the very hard way, right? And like you, I'm not the be all end all of anything, right?
Yeah.
And you know, one thing I do say that's a regular theme on this podcast is I'm not special. You know, if I can be better, you can be better. I mean, it's just a matter of doing the hard thing, right? But entrepreneurship is by its nature almost always the hard thing. So, you know, two things that I'm interested in from any entrepreneur. Two questions I'm always interested in. What drives you to always do the hard thing, be in the muck? Like, if I had to put a visual to entrepreneurship, it would be any war movie ever made where they're dragging themselves across barbed wire while bombs are going off around them, right? That's what it feels like most days.
Yeah.
So that's the first one. So what drives you to do that?
I mean, I think it evolved over time. I think originally it was the romanticism of entrepreneurship, especially when I got into it. I mean, I think it still exists, but I wouldn't say it was the hustle culture that drew me in, like the Gary Vee type stuff. It was the Steve Jobs story, the going from 0 to 1, whether it was Google or like I remember going to Silicon Valley when I was in 2018, just shortly after California had legalized cannabis. It was 6 months into it, and going to all those places, and it was weird going to where HP started, going to where Apple started, and then going and seeing their campus now, which is just like
The spaceship is
like a Death Star.
yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah, and it's weird, it's a bit of an out-of-body experience. And so I think that's originally what drew me to it. But obviously, once you get into it and you experience the massive scar tissue moments, which I had a front row seat to it with, some business mentors. But until you're actually, it's your neck on the line, it's the gun to your head. It's like, I assume, like going to war. You can only hear so much from vets and train so much till, okay, this is combat.
Yeah.
And so once I actually went through it, I think the thing that drew me to it was, even on the worst days,
That's my phone isn't on. I swear to God, that was my parents, and they're only ones that can get through on emergency ring.
they're like, you need to hear from us now.
Yeah. My dad always has the worst timing.
Where's the mayonnaise?
Yeah. It's probably a computer question, to be honest. It's almost always a computer question.
For me, after the bad stuff, it was even when you're cash strapped, I mean, you are the master of your own destiny.
Right.
When you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Even if you're at your lowest, if you're still in the game, you're still the master of your own destiny. Of course, that comes with massive trade-offs, like working 100-hour weeks, what have you. Like we were just talking about before coming on about, balancing the personal with the business and how that almost never really works out.
Yeah.
I've sacrificed tremendous amounts of, going on to having a normal personal life, but honestly, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Well, that leads to my next question. Yeah. So I have had 3 people in my life in their 40s and early 50s die of brain aneurysms or heart attacks. Healthy people.
Yeah.
Doing their thing.
Yeah.
Not entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So and it seems like and I know people don't blame the vaccine on this. but it seems like and it's just perception, because I know it's not statistically, it's not true. Yeah. But I've just noticed there's a lot of younger people dying around me, and I'm going, I am 25 for life, but sometimes I sit up and I'm like, so I just gave up this time with my parents or with my girlfriend or whatever to between July 24th and September 1st, I slept 62 hours.
I've been there. Yeah.
And I lost 18 pounds from the stress. I puked blood from the stress. Yeah. And I thought there was a moment there. Yeah. I called my friend Jamie and I was like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. I got no personal life to speak of. No like close friends that I hang out with on weekends. Got to watch the game, none of that stuff. I see my parents twice a month, maybe if I'm lucky. Yeah. I've got to manage. I'm constantly dealing with all these things that people don't deal with. And then on the flip side, my uncle and aunt who worked for Sears for 35 years get fired just short of their retirement, so they don't have to get paid severance. And I kind of look at it and go, but on the entrepreneurship side, like, you give up so much. Yeah, just so much. So when you think of it from that frame of mind, does that ever keep you up at night? Like, I'm giving up all this stuff.
I've been there. I remember, I don't remember the exact date or time, but I remember it would have been sometime in the winter of 2021, or was it 2022? Just trying to, no, it was sometime in the winter of 2021 when my back was completely against the wall. This was pre the lawsuit with Uncle Sam's.
Okay.
And I remember calling my dad and being like, however this turns out, like, if it doesn't end up in a ball of flame, which it's hilarious. It did end up in a ball of flames. But if it doesn't, then it's probably time for me to actually have a normal life and settle down, all this other stuff. Come through it. It did end up in a ball of flames, but I thought ball of flames meant I'm out of the game.
Right. Yeah.
Back in the paycheck factory.
Yeah.
The shame of the family, because then that's the story of always. Well, he took the risk and he went too fast. And,
Yeah.
and that's why no one gets steps out of line. And
Everybody always thinks they know why you failed. That's the crazy part, right?
of course,
Everyone's always like, well, it's because he went too fast, or because he hired too many people,
or if you're an American, they didn't grow fast enough.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the American culture. And so, obviously it didn't turn out that way, right? But I've had those moments, but when I look back now, and again, it's not like I have it all figured out. Definitely not liquid, but still in the game and in a growing business with Ashdown Market. And when I look back and I'm like, that was probably the worst time to make a decision on something.
Yeah.
You think that this is it.
Yeah.
This is literally the end. And like those stories of people having served somewhere for 35 years and then they get shown the door, no severance. The reality is life is risk.
Yeah.
Right. And we happen to live at a time period in human history where you can choose what I would call still risk, but arguably it's pretty hard to actually be completely screwed of options in the country that can. It really is.
That's true.
Even if you're at the bottom end of society, you're still able to feed yourself, probably still able to buy some sort of streaming service, right? Even if your credit's completely garbage, you can still do those basic things. So I think our version of failure, yes, in society it's bad, you'll be shamed, but it's still nothing close to what most of the world goes through.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not even close. And I think our risk still is, did you actually live your life? Did you actually, whatever fulfills you? And I know for me, it's definitely climbing over mountains that, probably shouldn't be climbed. In the first place. And in our world version of that's entrepreneurship.
Well, it's funny because I once went skydiving without a parachute. And
really?
Yeah, and
Okay, wait, how? Like, how does that even work?
Somebody jumps out of the plane with a parachute, then you jump out without it, you got to catch them, and then you latch onto them and they pull their chute. It's so insane.
So crazy.
Right? And I did it on a whim.
Crazy.
Right? And so that's always my way of looking at entrepreneurship. Because, like,
that is 100% what it is.
Yeah.
It's jumping out of the plane and then figuring out.
Yeah, because
we're going to build a plane before we...
I launched an event management platform at the beginning of the pandemic. I kind of had one, but it was an event ticketing platform that went full board into event management, which is a way bigger concept.
Yeah.
And then no events were happening for like 18 months around me, right? So it was like, oh my God. And I've stared down bankruptcy, 15 times in the last several years, right? I got $35,000 a week expenses.
Yeah.
And it's this is a little business.
No, that's intense.
It's crazy, right? Yeah. So then some weeks where I'm like, getting close, what are we gonna do? And then I find some way, and I've had a lot of false starts with the funding and all that, and I'm just like, and then I'm like, hey, if this one doesn't work, we're done. And then another one comes and another deal happens, and it's like, oh.
And again, this is gonna be hyperbolic, but I think that's life. Like, honestly, like, even if
you've got the grit for it.
No, but if you're like, look, entrepreneurship definitely isn't for everyone.
Yeah.
Just like jumping up a plane without a parachute, except for everyone.
I would never do that.
Yeah.
Even though I love taking risk. But that's just...
Come on, I'll be the guy with the parachute. I'll catch you if you fall, Josh.
Then I'm definitely not doing it, right? No, but that's just not for me. And so I'm not comparing it that, everyone's an entrepreneur. And no, clearly not everyone is. But I think the way to look at, if you feel that that's something you want to do, I think the way to look at it properly is that life is a risk. Like, it just is, right? And we have it built into our minds that, okay, we can plan this all out. We're going to do this, and we're going to get the mortgage, and we're going to pay it off in 20 to 30 years. And then the kids are going to live this perfect life. And then they're going to have, and arguably a lot of people do live that life. And then we're going to retire at this age, and then we're going to die. right? And so
My girlfriend lives that life.
well, but along that, even if you do live that on paper,
Yeah.
I mean, no, it doesn't work like
Yeah, there's still tons of
that.
challenges.
There's still tons of bad stuff that happens.
Yeah.
Tons of setbacks, similar to running a business. Anyone looking in at either of our stories would be like, wow, and they just skated through, and
Yeah.
it was all fun and games.
Just skating.
Right? It was all great. And the thing about entrepreneurship, and I think why a lot of people view it that way, I viewed it that way before I got into it, is because the highs are so awesome.
Yeah,
That
or
when-
ever.
When the worst parts happen, it's hard to even believe that, oh, could it really be that bad?
Yeah.
The lowest parts. Like, yeah, no, it can really be that bad.
I'll never forget, in the same week, it was years ago, Fear won like a ton of awards. Our first, I think it was either our first or second year. We won all the awards from everywhere you could find.
Yeah.
And it was all seemed to be, there was one award show, we won 6 awards. And in the same week, it would have been year 1. In the same week, I broke my back and was paralyzed. And I just come off of the political thing too.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm like,
And I would say, come out the political thing. Like, were you like in the process of rebuilding your PR, or
I had just moved
or
out
the
of
nuke had happened?
the nuke had happened.
and you're like in it. You're in
I
the
had
nuke.
just moved out of Canada
Okay, so you
because
were,
I
like,
couldn't
in
even
it.
get my groceries bagged.
It is so weird how that works.
Oh
like
my
often when because I look back when my bad PR happened. It was
Yeah.
like, one of my business partners was opening up his business. That was iconic, and I'm like, this is so like fucked. Like,
Yeah.
why is this all happening at the same time?
Yeah, it's all.
And anytime a big move happens
yeah,
in I'm sure anything, but in business, the only thing I can compare it to, it's like that's when the rockets fly.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. Because my partner went and did all the awards because I didn't have, I couldn't get to it.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't in the country.
Yeah.
And-
I like that's how.
But so she's up there accepting the awards,
Yeah.
and I'm like,
And-
this
and
is
when-
crazy. This is so awesome. And then I break my back,
Yeah.
and I lose. I already lost a bunch. Now I lose everything, including my mobility. And I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah.
This is over.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna sit. I'm gonna be. What's his name from Forrest Gump? Captain Dan. Is that his name? I thought that was my life.
Oh yeah.
Like I literally was like, okay, I'm gonna be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life, and I'm just gonna be like, I'm just gonna drink and be scummy and like,
gonna trip.
I don't know what to do with myself. And that was in 2016. It's 2023,
Yeah.
and like it feels like another life ago.
Yeah. No, it is. It's weird how that. I mean, I think that honestly,
Lieutenant Dan, that was his name, Lieutenant Dan.
I think that is what makes entrepreneur like because you've been in politics.
Yeah,
Politics is like it is literally like drugs because you know it's 100% bad for you.
yes,
But when you're in it, you're like, I just want to keep doing this, keep doing it. Business is, it can be like, it's not as extreme, but like I'm sure you look back at that comeback and it is intoxicating. It's like,
yeah,
like being pushed right past the edge, not even at the edge.
yeah. No, I was way up.
You're past the edge,
Skydiving without a parachute.
and then all of a sudden now you're back, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You're doing all these, completely different things than you'd ever predicted.
Yeah.
It is intoxicating. Yeah.
So you pivoted
Yeah.
from Ashdown Cannabis to Ashdown
Yeah.
Market.
Well, and really, it was a defensive pivot from the whole weed industry.
Well, most pivots are defensive.
Yeah, no, but it wasn't even from like one company.
Yeah, it was like,
It was the whole weed thing.
yeah.
We gotta get out of here.
Now it's like a very small piece of what you do.
Very small piece
Yeah.
of what we do.
The guys don't even have the cream my mom likes.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. We had the topical.
yeah. So you do this pivot. So Instagram is probably like the most famous pivot of all time in tech, right?
Yeah.
They went from being one thing to something totally different.
Yeah. It's
Get
like a
bought.
bourbon review thing, right? Originally or something. Like that.
Well, if I remember correct, you know what? You should probably call us out on this. If you can Google it. What was Instagram founded as? Because I believe it was originally founded as a location sharing app for your friends, and then it became something else, and then it became what we know today, bought by Meta.
Yeah.
One of the largest tech deals ever at the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, what kind of story? Let's see here. Yeah, that's right. So which was inspired by his love for whiskeys and bourbons. Okay, yeah, you're right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's how it started. And then that's how it started. Then it became a location sharing app. That became a photo sharing app, I believe. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, bourbon app to the largest photo and video app.
Yeah.
That's a huge pivot. How scary was the pivot?
Well, a little less scary at the time than it should have been, right? Because I think there was so little hope, right? Just come through Uncle Sam's, and had some false hope about this cannabis delivery app. It basically was like a skip the dishes, but for weed. I had false hope about it because we finally won the license, but the whole weed industry was blowing up. I just come through a very public, fight with a lot of people in weed. So, it wasn't like, oh yeah, everyone's running here to give us a bunch of money to go, conquer the world with this thing.
Yeah.
And so pretty bruised, right? Because you're coming through a time of, you're in the wilderness, no one's taking you seriously. Okay, now there's a few people talking to us, there's some activity. So, it really wasn't until, so we started it in May, Ashdown Market, which was, we're in the Exchange District. That was the one common thread all the partners had.
Right.
And that I still had enough oomph to be like, no, I'm not just going to lay flat here and, just kind of move on. I want to still be an entrepreneur and I love the Exchange. So let's find a way to make that happen. And so we took a risk on grocery. There's no grocery store in downtown in general, never mind the Exchange District. And it took off. And it really wasn't until mid to end of summer where I was like, wow, this is very high risk.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. It wasn't until we're in it now, right? And we're running fresh food, and this isn't some pre-roll sitting in the back that really can't go bad.
Yeah.
That's locked away that people.
Oh, I see. So the concept hadn't quite settled in your brain yet.
The reality of operating.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Right?
That's fair.
All the growing pains of that, and yeah, sure, running to wholesale and 3 to 5 other vendors 1 week seems like fun. Well, it's not very fun after you're working 100-hour weeks.
Yeah.
It's not fun at a certain point. You just have to be like, okay, this is not practical.
Right.
And if we're really going to become a grocery store, it's a lot more than just a couple fresh tomatoes and some loaves of bread and some milk in the fridge. People have high expectations of what that looks like.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, that was really the evolution. I didn't really get the risk. And that's kind of the guy I am. I think a lot of entrepreneurs are different people. Some people are very analytical. Some people are, big visionaries.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely more the visionary side. And so I don't really recognize, okay, here's all the harsh realities until you're
Right.
in,
Yeah.
which has advantages.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also has massive disadvantages.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what do you think? So you do the pivot, you're into a business now that's pretty stable.
Yeah.
Right. And I see some of the measured things you did to get there.
Yeah.
But what do you think defines you as a better entrepreneur now than you were before?
Well, I think learned experience. I think experience is one thing. You got a ton of experience in something and still completely suck at it and not be very good at it, not be a very good human, right? Because of it. Learned experience. I always joke about scar tissue, but in entrepreneurship, it's a real thing. If you've gone bankrupt, well, that's real scar tissue that now lives with you. Yeah. And that makes it hard to go get a loan, makes it hard to get a credit card, whatever that may be.
Right.
And so, I haven't gone personally bankrupt, but I have my own scar tissue that, has consequences, but also has, benefits. I now know a lot of things I didn't know before. And in any skill, until you've actually gone through it yourself, you don't really know. There's only so much you can read about things until actually you jumped out of the plane and gone after the parachute that's not on you, right?
Yeah.
I know what that experience, what that feels like. So no, learned experience is by far the thing that makes me a better entrepreneur than I was back then. And also, when you're in the trenches and when you're at that 11th hour, when you had that conversation about maybe I made some mistakes here, maybe I shouldn't be coughing up blood and lost 18 pounds. over work, you know. It like the conversation I had with my dad about maybe it's time for me to settle down, which of course is any good parent, they're going to say yes.
Yeah, of course.
You should be doing.
Yeah, I had the moment with my parents too. Yeah.
And to their credit, they never went that direction on their own. You know, like
Yeah.
most parents are the ones saying, "Hey, like, what's wrong with you?"
Yeah.
They weren't the ones doing that, to their credit. When I look back, you know, all those things, even though I didn't follow through with it, going to the quote unquote normal life, it really makes you look back in retrospect and be like, wow, I really actually do like being an entrepreneur. You don't really know if you like something if everything's just going great.
Yeah.
Money's rolling in the door.
That's true. Yeah.
Like a marriage, if everything's
Do you like the result or do you like the journey? Do you like the yeah, that's true.
in a marriage, if everything's going according to plan, I mean,
Yeah.
you really know if you actually want to be with this person, and likewise them to you.
Yeah.
You don't really.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It's funny because compared to like I'm in a relationship now.
Yeah.
And I said something last night actually. And it was a trigger thing for her. Right?
Okay.
It's something like something from her past or whatever. And she stood back and looked me dead in the eye. She's like, "Nope." Nope. And I was like, "Wait, what?" And she's like,
no.
But it was interesting because in the past, any past relationship that I was in, they would have just gotten mad, not really vocalized why. We would have just fought, and it would have just been
that was been an undercurrent.
But she was like, yeah, exactly, and it would have built up and up and up, and then that's how we would have communicated. But she was like, "Nope," and here's why. And I was like, "I get it. Never again."
Okay.
And if I do it again, understand it's a slip up, and I will do better next time.
Yeah.
And in business, I have found that to be critical. I used to fail, take it hard, and not have the right conversations to figure out why and how to do better and all these things. And then I would just jump back into it, and I jump back into it 10 times harder because I figure it's like, I do this in pool too.
And when you say jump back in, like, you mean to the exact same
pretty much
thing?
Now I'm gonna do it with more force, so that it works this time.
Yeah.
Whereas when
that was me with THC.
Okay, yeah,
there should have been like 3 or 4 different crossroads.
right, yeah, exactly.
We're exiting off this.
Yeah. So, but you're so ingrained in what you want to do.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter that it didn't work the way you want it to work. It's like, now I know, so now I'm going to push against it harder. And now, I remember back in my bar days, something went wrong. Anybody involved was fired. Was it?
Just that's
everybody's done.
That team's gone.
Yeah. Now I'm like, why did this happen? Did you learn from it? What can we do as a team to not make this happen again? How can we build back from it? All those sorts of things. And then you come back stronger.
Yeah. I also think, especially in Canada, specifically Manitoba, Winnipeg, I really think we have such everything is always good. You know what I mean? Like, yes, everything's always good. If you're in business, if you're whatever, you're in school, everything's always good. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You can't fail.
Yeah.
God forbid, right? And if you do fail, you just don't talk about it. Friends know not to bring it up. Of course, when they leave the room, well, then everyone brings it up.
Of course, yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think as an entrepreneur who has failed very publicly, likewise, you've been through it too, you realize that that's pretty unhealthy. Like, that's that's not, A, it's not realistic. B, if you actually do live by that window of you cannot ever crack, there can never be a slip up.
Yeah.
You're going to miss a lot of big opportunities, and you're not going to grow as a person, likely.
Yeah.
Not to say you grow as a person if you fail, but there's a higher chance you do.
And growth comes from...
You still got to choose to grow.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But there's a higher chance you choose.
Yeah.
It's easier in that moment when you're on your back. And so I think I definitely live this way. Like, if you embrace failure, like, right, not that you embrace it where you just... Because I look at THC, wow, like, there's 3 or 4 times where I should have exited.
Yeah.
Done the next thing, not just been like, okay, we're going at it again.
Yeah.
Just gonna keep doing it. But I learned through that, and I think failure, especially if you're gonna go do something big, it's a part of the package.
Well,
It really is. And I know a lot of people, cry foul when they hear, big titans now say, oh, you're just going to fail. I've lost billions. That's actually all true in their story.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, of course, when you hit the trillionaire mark, does it really matter? No.
Yeah.
But to get there, no, that they're not making that up. Yeah, you do have to fare pretty spectacularly to do something significant and big.
Well, I spent my summer in Vegas, and I was around a lot of people that have a lot of money. And one couple in particular I spent a lot of time with, and they saw the house. Ridiculous house. They have a jet. They have multiple garages. They've got pretty much everything you could ever really want material-wise, right? And they're married, and they seem happy, and also they got all that going on for them too. But Marina said to me, she goes, I had your problems 7 years ago.
Really?
Now I have your problems, kind of, but with more zeros behind them.
Right.
So she's like, your car breaks down, it costs you $900. My jet breaks down, it costs me $90,000. You don't make $100,000 on a show, and it's like, it's a failure. I don't make 10 million on a show, it's a failure. She's like, it's just your problems as you get richer and as you continue to still be like, they should, I think, I don't come from the mentality of work forever, right? But they do. They could probably stop right now and just be perfectly fine. But they have a certain goal, right? Their next goal is
but for you, the
really nice yacht.
The not work forever part, is there like a number in mind?
24 million.
Okay. So there actually is an exact
number.
And like that's liquid or like net?
24 million liquid.
Okay.
That's my number. Okay. And the reason why that's my number is I've done the math.
But are you going to be like Walter White, where you, you know what I mean? He sat down in the car, figured the exact number, and then Jesse confronts him later, and he's like, "Well, actually, that was bullshit."
My number? No.
I'm in the Empire business.
My number is based on actual math.
Okay.
I figured out what I want to do with my life.
Okay.
And how much it'll cost. And I've taken it and I've said rate of inflation and all that, right. And I figured it out, and it's 24 million. I don't want or need a lot.
Yeah.
I will continue to wear black t-shirts every day. Yeah. I will continue to wear, Vans. I don't care about name brands. I don't care about glitz and glamour. Sean and I talk about this a lot. She's very fashionable. Every time we go out, I'm like, you look like you just stepped off a runway or out of a magazine, and I look like a hobo.
The guys can get away with.
But I enjoy that. I said to her, you get to be the star of the show whenever you want.
Okay.
I'm just your bodyguard.
Right.
So, but what it was interesting about being around...
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay. What was interesting about being around these rich people was... I began to really see for the first time in my life, because I've been around rich people before, but this is like stupid rich, right?
Yeah.
No, so, their big goal right now is to get the craziest yacht, and I'm like, I don't want a yacht, but I see how being inside of their business,
right?
I see how no matter what level you're at, no matter how good you are, no matter if, Eric is considered the best in the world of what he does, and Marina is basically his absolute runs that ship, right? So them as a unit are the best at what they do, and they still fail, and they still learn, and they still have to pivot, and all these things. And I'm like, that's what life ultimately ends up being, is no matter what you're doing. I look at Shauna, who's been a nurse for like 20 years. She's in the dream nurse position as a public health nurse. She takes her job. She loves her job. She has total stability in life, which is why I'm like, I don't understand why you're with me. For multiple reasons, but that's a big one. But at the end of the day, she has a lot of things that she struggles with, right? No matter what you do, life is struggle, like you said. Yeah. You just have to pick which struggle makes you happiest.
Yeah.
It's like, did you ever watch Wall Street, the one with Shia LaBeouf, and the old guy said, the old guy says to him, life, it's not for sissies.
Yeah.
and it's true. No matter what you do, if you want to make it in any way, shape, or form, whatever that looks like to you, you can't be a sissy, as he says.
I think the one difference, I think pro sports is similar to this, even though obviously I'm not that. Like I think the difference is that like you're not, like you said, like you talk to your friend when you're like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm always working. I've like no beers with the guys, no Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
No family really of my own. Like that is the big trade-off.
It is.
When you're going, before you get to the part arguing about how big your yacht's going to be.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it is. That is the big difference between once you hit that level.
Yeah.
And in pro sports, I'm sure it's similar. Like, I remember watching one interview with Kobe Bryant. He said, yeah, like if you want to be the best, there is no, okay, we're doing date night every Monday. That does not exist.
Yeah.
He said, I told my, wife to be at the time, that is a reality. This is taking precedent. I'm pursuing this.
Yeah.
So I think it's similar. I think obviously there's an off ramp in entrepreneurship if you hit a certain wealth level, whatever that number is for different people.
Do you have a number?
No, I don't have a number. And the times when I almost had one, it's fluctuated. I think for me, it's about getting one, because I look at like Exchange PP. It was a success, but it wasn't one I could turn around and sell, turn around and say, okay, it's, I've handed it off to this partner or whatever, and they're now doing it. And I get my whatever every
Your dividends of some sort.
Yeah. And, I want to get at least one of them to that point, sort of something tangible.
Yeah.
What that looks like and what that is, I don't know specifically.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I my ultimate goal is to travel and write. I like the idea.
Because you've already written a few. Right?
Yeah. Well, that was my biggest mistake.
Like, how so?
Writing and releasing for profit.
Okay.
Because writing is my passion. And the second I went and turned it into something that I'm trying to make money off of, it ruined it.
Okay.
So,
Like, in what sense? Like, and when did you know? When you were like, okay, this.
I knew when my publisher was pushing me for the third book.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't want to write because I hate writing. And I was like, wait, what? I hate writing? When did that happen? And then I'm sitting there going, why do I hate writing? Oh, I hate writing because I'm not writing for me anymore. I'm writing for them.
Right.
So I came up with a deal and I got out of it. And now I barely ever write because I don't have time. But I still really love writing. So when I get to write, that's one big reason why I like being in a relationship, because I get to write a lot.
Okay.
Like that's just what type of relationship.
Because there's like content ideas, or there's some form of stability where now you can.
I am better in written word. So if I'm trying to express a thought to Shauna, I will generally write it.
Okay.
Not text it.
That.
But write it, actual thoughtful writing.
Pretty late.
Yeah.
Really the writing. And Shauna,
like
I'm tweeting more, right? Like, so
yeah,
writing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's writing, but it's definitely, events and event management and VIP and all that stuff is something I like doing. It's something I've done for a long time. It's something I know that I'm good at. But it's not what will get me up in the morning when I'm 60.
That's totally fair.
That's writing.
Yeah.
Okay. Now maybe for the couple I'm talking about, maybe it is for them. Maybe what they do will get them. Well, they're getting like Ericsson's 50s.
Yeah.
So maybe that's how it works for them, because he does, like, I talked to him the other day. He's doing like 12 hours a day of Zoom calls.
12 hours a day of Zoom calls.
Yeah, and he's tired for sure, but he seems to still dig it. And I'm like, I don't know that I could. That's why, every investor asks you, what's your exit strategy? My dream exit strategy is to sell to Meta, because I believe I know how to make Meta 3 to 6 plus $1 billion a year.
Yeah, I remember you telling me.
You know, and you know, Mark Zuckerberg doesn't get back to me, but I will say that I firmly believe that, and I don't believe that that's like a grandiose dream or something. I see it, and so my exit strategy, dream exits that. My main exit strategy would be to eventually, once I get it to the point where it's just a profit generating machine, take a step back, let somebody step into the role of CEO. I collect my dividends. I get to have some creative power and call it a day. Right. The creative stuff is what I love the most. Right. I you know, I do love business. Don't get me wrong. I love getting into a good boardroom, you know, verbal brawl where we're trying to like negotiate, go back and forth. That stuff's a lot of fun to me. But ultimately I get off on the creative side of things. Yeah. I'm creating something that is so much better than what else is out there is so cool. Yeah. But entrepreneurship ultimately for me has come down to one very direct question. And that is, would I, if I ended up getting hit by a bus and I'm like on my last leg, would I consider this all to be a waste? No.
But would you, like, is there a certain point in your story where that would have happened? You would have been like, yeah, it was a waste.
I think up until, yeah.
like, because I'm sure everyone, if they're honest, would say yes. But what point was it that not the case?
That point would have been, you know what? It was going through, it sounds crazy because it was fairly recent. It was COVID. So a lot of friends of mine, their businesses failed. And there was nothing but struggle out there. Yeah. And I got hit with so many things I never expected to happen. And I'm going, this is at first, as that started, I was like, so my big okay, so I should back up. When COVID first happened, my big struggle was nobody needs me. Right. I'm useless. I'm sitting here, nobody's calling me, right? I'm a marketing and events guy. Literally nobody needs me. Yeah. I have no function in this world.
And when did you accept that? Like the first lockdown, the second lockdown?
That was right from the beginning.
Oh, so right from the beginning.
When everything started shutting down, I had no business. I had nothing.
Yeah, I remember that period. I was
like, wait a second. Yeah. I've lived my life as a person that seeks purpose.
Yeah.
I have no purpose.
Yeah.
But then I had to keep people employed. I had to keep the wheels of commerce in this place going. And I was like, there's the purpose. You know?
Okay, so for you, that was the fuel.
Yeah, so that was the fuel. So I'm like, yeah, I got people that depend on me. I don't have kids, but I've got people that depend on me. Their paychecks, their food on their table depends on me. I have to keep the wheels on this bus, you know? So that was what did it. And it drove me to be like, you know, because we got through it. Yeah. And the second we got through it, the second that the lockdowns were all done and everything, we were still standing and a lot of people weren't. I was like,
I look your reaction. So honestly, prior to that, like a bus hit you, you'd be like, this entrepreneurship thing.
I would have been like, this was such a waste of my time.
Really?
And it's not like I didn't have amazing.
And how many years were you into it?
Dude, I've been an entrepreneur since I was like 16.
Oh, wow. And that's heartbreaking. Man. You'd have been like, way like...
I know. I went through, and it's not like I haven't had cool... I could look back.
Obviously, you had cool moments.
Yeah, I had great experiences.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have made it that far.
You know, I've talked about it on the podcast before. I had my Rocky moment, which I've always wanted. You know, when The Rock comes out of wrestling, everybody chants his name. I had that with Feel the Heat. Yeah. I was on TV. I met celebrities and Obama. I was like, you know, lots of really...
And really, honestly, and you would have been like, bus hits you pre-pandemic. You're like, that was a waste of time.
What really fucked me up was working for the Obama campaign.
Right, because like the low after?
Yeah, I could not get to that level of happiness or feeling of success. Yeah, it was politics, man. Yeah, it was crazy. And And so I thought I chased that feeling, and I think that's why I felt unfulfilled.
Right.
And it took me a while to get to where I could say I have now secured that feeling again. Right now I'm in it. I have a whole lot of stress still, like I did then.
No, I totally get what you mean by that. Yeah, honestly, for me, it'd be the same timeline pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I was an entrepreneur that long.
Yeah.
Pre-pandemic, very short period, but pre-pandemic, I'd be like, yeah, all these different things I didn't amount to much, and it kind of was a bit of a waste of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody counted us out for the pandemic.
Yeah.
I mean, I had, the bank called me and they're like, so are you shutting down or what's happening? I was like, what?
And this was like day one of lockdown, or like?
So the bank called me about 3 months in.
Okay.
They're like, so you're not making any money. Like, what are you doing here?
Like, submitted your default.
Yeah. And I was like, I'll figure it out. And every week, I had to figure it out.
Yeah.
Every week, the expenses were there.
Yeah.
Hell, we renovated, expanded during COVID, even though we had no money coming in. I was like, I'm going to double down on this whole thing, which was crazy. And I guess it's a testament to savings. But and now, even though we're in a situation where if we want to grow the way I want to grow, we need the investment.
Yeah.
Even if it fell apart today, like let's say I didn't get the investment and I can't figure out a way to make it move fast enough. And I say, okay, I got to admit it. I got to shut down.
Yeah.
This is a success to me.
Right.
And it's a success because I can't believe I'm here. Like it was everything that got thrown at me. The political thing, the broken back, the fire, COVID, and we're still here. Yeah. Like you got to feel that way.
Oh, for sure, 100%. But I don't. I think the only difference is that like, unless I'm literally incapacitated or dead, like quitting is not an option. I guess that's maybe why I don't like. Do I have a vision of what I want to do? Like, what's the bigger level? Because it's levels, right?
Yeah.
Like your friends are now talking about yachts, but they're still on 12-hour Zoom calls.
Yeah.
Which we still do Zoom calls. Like it's just levels of the game. But the reason why I don't think I have like a number in mind and this is the exit, I have some thoughts as to what would be bigger success.
Right.
Because I don't view it as like the moment you like quote unquote quit, like that's kind of it. You know what I mean? Like if that makes sense to me, that's all.
Not in software.
Like but like
software is a little bit of a different beast.
No, but for me, there's always the next thing. There's always the next.
Oh, there's still a next thing in my head.
No, but there's always another thing we're fighting and we're doing. It might not be the same group of characters, the same partners, but there and that when I look at my story from just start of the pandemic, Edwards Court, trading in CBD to the PP to Uncle Sam's to THC to THC / Ashdown Cannabis to Ashdown Market. Now it's just a string of lily pad hopping, granted to bigger ones.
Yeah.
And you're still in the game. You're still in the war. You're still, and I don't ever view it as like, okay, and now we're done. Because the moment I'm like, and now we're done. Well, no, then that's it. Like,
what I mean by done is
either I'm too old to literally think and do this shit.
Yeah.
Or like I'm dead.
Well, no, what I mean by that is like if Sync Digital Solutions had to shut down today.
Right.
Because we're not giving enough money.
Yeah.
But there's still,
if you got bought by Meta.
Right. Yeah, whatever it looks like.
Whatever that
there's still something next.
Yeah, well,
unless I get that number.
Yeah, but okay,
then it's just writing and travel.
Right. I guess that's where, and again, I completely could see, because the one thing I've learned when you say like, what's made you a better entrepreneur is like, you don't know what would your way of thinking and your perspective be like at a different level. You don't really know.
Yeah, that's true.
Until you're there. Right. Yeah. And it's always way different than you think. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It's always way different than you think. So I'm not saying this is a for certainty, but when I look at what's the one common thread from Josh in elementary school to Josh, seasoned entrepreneur, it's that there is always a next thing.
There's
always a next battle.
Yep.
Right. It's never, okay, now we just,
well, mine's creativity.
Sail off into the sunset.
So that's why mine's different, because mine from Josh in elementary,
right?
Jay in elementary school to Jay now.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
It's always creativity.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So if I have the ability to be creative, but I'm also like a really big experience person. So one thing I did that a lot of people consider to be a mistake is all my 20s, early teens, all through my 20s, I worked for experience. So I'd get a big chunk of money, and I'd spend it on experience. Go broke, not broke, but like have no money, come back, throw another party, do another bar, whatever, generate a bunch of money.
That's me, man.
And go do an experience.
I remember I was telling this to, I forget who, a friend of mine the other day. I wouldn't do this now, but I remember flying to New Zealand and like almost having not enough money even if we got there.
Yeah.
Right? And then and obviously it worked out. It was a great experience, but I was like, man, like that was extraordinarily reckless in our 20s. To like, same thing when I went to Iceland, same thing, like almost no money.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't, at the time, like it was worth it.
I lived in a Mexican resort and didn't tell anybody. I had no
They're just like hovering. Like,
yeah.
Hopefully no one notices.
Yeah.
I'm an interloper here. Like,
yeah, I just, and you know what? Like it was one of the best times of my life. I woke up every morning, got a massage on the beach, because everything was included.
Yeah.
Right?
Because everything was
Nobody knew there.
Hey, I was not included.
Yeah. I had $0 while doing it. I spent everything to get there and live there, but because it was all inclusive, I had no expenses.
You just hung out.
I just hung out. I did what I wanted to do. I thought of the next thing I wanted to do, and that was it. But even then, I'm like, I can enjoy a sunset over the ocean in a way that some people can't. Yeah. Because some people see a sunset over the ocean, they're like, okay.
Yeah.
But I see it and I'm like, it gets me going. Like it gets my brain turning, right? So, like everybody says, what's your dream vacation? Space. If I could have hitched a ride,
consider that a vacation though.
Absolutely.
It's like you're like an explorer. It's like being Lewis and Clark.
Well, I don't explore in every vacation I take.
Yeah, no, but
like
you really are like.
I've played card games in dungeons in Mexico.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, like I'm always exploring, and space to me, like, I wouldn't do it now because I have a relationship and I've got your responsibility. But when James Webb Space Telescope was first being talked about, I had tweeted at NASA, can you just give me some of that space food and I'll just take the one-way trip? Because I was like, that would be a pretty cool way to go out.
Yeah.
Just a few years of James Webb Space Telescope, hanging out, seeing things that nobody's ever seen before. And then you just time out. You take a little pill, go to bed.
Yeah.
Maybe you just get blazed out of your brain and just like fall asleep and you're done and you die in space. And so, this is the way my brain works. It's not at all, that is not the entrepreneur side of me. The entrepreneur,
right? No, okay, I get it. Yeah.
Yes. The entrepreneur side of me, I'm like, I want to build something. I want it to mean something. I want legacy, but what I really found funny was recently I was looking at some of Alex's videos, Alex Ramosi.
Yeah.
And there was I see this common thread from people and they're like, I'm watching all your videos and I know it's all I need to become a successful business person. And I'm like, get champed.
Yeah, but like, don't you think like that's some of the like hustle culture of like Alex is not Gary Vee, but like they're kind of in that same window.
Yeah. The problem with that,
and it attracts that like a large amount of the crowd is that.
Yeah. Right? The problem with it is that like 50% of what Alex says has no business in being in my business. Yeah. Right now, there is some stuff he says that I'm like, absolutely, I'm applying this in my business. It's helped me. Yeah. Great. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of stuff he says, and I'm like, that just doesn't try. But I see the problem with today, I think, and the problem with a lot of entrepreneurs is they look at Gary Vee or Alex or somebody like that, and they say, I have to listen to everything he says.
Yeah.
Why? But no, you cannot like some of the stuff he says. It's okay.
Yeah. And look, I think using them as inspiration is one thing. Like, I look at some of the people I use as inspiration, which is probably.
Who are your big entrepreneurial inspirations?
Well, Steve Jobs definitely at the top of that list.
Yeah,
definitely. I read the documentary or the biography by.
How do you reconcile with him being such a dick? That's what I've had a hard time with. I'm like, there are a lot of people that have told me things. Like I've met a lot of multimillionaires and billionaires, and they've said to me, there are a lot of things that I have done that I am not proud of to get here, and you will have to if you want to get to my level. And I would think on his deathbed, he was probably like, shit, maybe. Probably did, right? So how do you reconcile that, like, as being one of your idols?
Yeah. I mean, similarly to some degree, like, when you're an entrepreneur, your back's against the wall, you have to let go of a lot of people. That's what you got to do.
Yeah.
And of course, from that perspective, you were not the good guy that day, or thereafter, because that has negative impacts on them. And I'm not saying that, because a lot of what he did in his personal life was like horrifically bad to his, his first daughter and stuff.
Yeah.
But when I look at the inspiration from someone like him, definitely the adoption thing was a big part of it, being adopted too. And I think his perspective because I mean, you look at, I don't care what company you build up, and it becomes something like, it is all meaningless at some point, gets taken over by, demonic, money hungry things, entities, BlackRock or a bunch of, it just does. Right?
Yeah.
That is not saying all capitalism is evil. Obviously, I wouldn't be in the game if I believe that.
Yeah.
But there certainly are huge negative aspects of it. You've been through it with, the VC experience and seeing what that was like. But when I look at it, and this is kind of what Steve Jobs espoused, it is really handing on, because he was in tech, and he, worked at HP as a kid, called one of the founders of HP. They actually answered his call, got advice from them. And when he massively failed and got fired by Apple, he called a lot of these people and said, look, I failed passing on the baton to the next generation of Silicon Valley. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Right. And then he came back, and then obviously was a massive success. I look at it like, obviously not in tech, but I feel like that's why I'm pursuing this. That's why there's always a next thing. It's never just, okay, now we're going to go off into the sunset. I want, because I look at in my life, there was, and there still isn't, arguably, in my opinion, no Indigenous entrepreneur, no Indigenous Steve Jobs. There's no one to be like, okay, no Indigenous Musk.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a thing.
Yeah.
There might be some subversions of it, through, tribes that are very successful, like casinos or something. But that's a whole nation. That's not one individual, co-founder in the garage. And so, and I'm not saying I'm the one guy who's going to go and do it, but there needs to be people that do it.
Yeah.
And so I feel like if that's where I end off at 80, that's where I pass.
So that's your largest that's your larger purpose?
That is the larger, because I think, I mean, all these, the Ashton market became this massive thing, and was the Whole Foods of that. I mean, and it gets gobbled up by, then I made a lot of money. People that are close to me, they're going to experience that benefit. The original founders will experience, but I mean, beyond that, it's whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's really meaningless.
Yeah.
But if it, inspires the next, and like, if I could help put together a VC fund that's specifically focused on Indigenous entrepreneurs, of course, people will say, oh, Josh, there's grants, but that's the problem. There's grants. That's not the same thing as let's, go and change the world with this money with a bunch of cowboys. Right. And it's not that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think are your definitive things in business right now that you're applying that have made you better in this moment?
Persistence, for sure. I mean, that was the one common thread throughout it all. Persistence. Not giving up.
Sorry, let me word this differently. Things that you wish you had been able to do, but didn't even know about, or didn't know how to execute on before, that have made you the better entrepreneur or better person.
Things I didn't know.
That's probably an or better.
Yeah.
Entrepreneur, better human.
Yeah. I honestly, like, because you say it like, okay, like the parachute analogy, we keep going back to it, like jumping out the plane, like you're going to build a plane on the way down. One of my business partner and business mentor, Noel, tells me a story of where there was a Navy SEAL. They blindfolded them, put them in a setting, and they said, okay, we're going to take off the blindfold. And now we want to see what your decision making is. And so when they took the blindfold off of them, they were inside a burning plane. That was a simulation. And so the Navy SEAL trainee just ran out the door and jumped out of the plane. And so after the test, they said, why the hell did you do that? Like, you just jumped out of a plane.
Yeah.
Now you're for sure dead.
Yeah.
Why didn't you try to see what was actually going on? Just the fact that it was on fire. He said, one problem at a time. And I think that, it's one thing to say it, even in my first few businesses, it's one thing to do it. But honestly, you don't really understand that one trait is really what defines the person that did the big thing versus the one that just,
Yeah, that's true.
So like
One problem at a time.
like The Social Network. Remember when they're going through that scene where the Justin Timberlake character is talking about, do you want like 10 successful yoga stores or like a $1 billion company?
Yeah.
It's kind of that. And that really, in my opinion, that is the difference between the two. The guy who had the 10 yogurt stores versus the guy who had the $1 billion company.
Right.
They went one problem at a time.
Yeah.
When the bank called you, basically just laughing, like waiting for your death.
Yeah.
Probably joking about the water. Yeah, the idiots. Yeah, he's going to try to fight another day.
Yeah.
But you did one problem at a time.
Yeah. That's right.
Look at where you are right now. Right?
Yeah.
I remember first coming here, the podcast. I mean, it wasn't even a podcast studio.
Yeah.
It was like an IKEA set with, with like one webcam.
Yeah.
And now look.
Yeah.
It's legit thing.
Yeah.
And so I think that is the biggest thing, even though I knew it at the start, until you've seen a few huge explosions and then coming out of the bunker and the, nuclear winter and surviving that winter.
Yeah.
You don't really appreciate one problem at a time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because I recently, because every Halloween I'll watch my favorite episodes of Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And I this year, instead of watching the episodes, I watched the recaps of each season.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, I'll do the Fear of Walking Dead recaps too, and then the Daryl Dixon and all, just get the whole universe in. And I was thinking that as I was watching him, like, so Rick wakes up in a coma, out of a coma, and he gets up in the hospital, and everybody's dead.
Mm-hmm.
So now that the problem is, how do I actually get mobile and get moving? So he gets moving, then he goes outside of the hospital. Then he sees everybody's dead, and he experiences zombies. And then he goes and at the beginning of the episode, he sees a zombie with no body, and it's just crawling, and it can barely move, right? And he leaves it alone. At the end of the episode, he goes up to it, and I'm sorry this happened to you, and puts it out of its misery, right? And that's a thing where, like, he rode by it, because it wasn't his problem at the time, right? And he rode by his whole thing was to find home again and figure out where his family was.
Yeah.
And then it was this, and then it was this, and then it was this. And then he went back and shot that zombie because he's like, all of them need to go. Sorry it's happened to you, but you need to die.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're dangerous. So, and I remember thinking that as I was watching the episode, I'm like, God, this is just like entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
It's like we have so much coming at us, but we just have to say, okay, what's the most important thing right now? I'll deal with that. I'll deal with that next thing next,
Yeah. One problem at a time and persistence. But I mean, I think persistence is the quote unquote easy part. I mean, you can be persistent in anything.
Well,
very bad idea. Right?
Easy if you find the thing that you are passionate enough about to be persistent.
For sure.
I think.
For sure.
Like there's a lot of people that do things and they're like, and you can see they have no persistence. I find it's usually due to a lack of love of what they're doing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, I think the one problem at a time is the biggest.
Yeah, that's good.
High level thing.
I like that Navy SEAL story. We definitely got to opus clip that one, Skylar. For sure. Okay, well, you know what? We've gone over our hour now. We can do this again, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What next time you have like a big moment that comes up? Like I know you had the co-op thing.
Yeah.
Came up. Congrats on that. Next time you have another one of those, let me know. We'll do a podcast. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
About the next big moment in Josh Giesbrecht's life.
Yeah.
Am I saying the last name right?
Yeah, you are.
Because I know some people.
Really?
I said it.
No, you say it perfect.
I said it to somebody, and they were like, "No, it's Giesbrecht," and I was like,
Yeah, that's
Giesbrecht. I've never heard that before.
That's like you're saying it the Anglophone, like Canadiana, the way I would have heard it.
Okay.
I'm sure there's more like,
Giesbrecht.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure there's more versions with more saliva.
Yeah.
That are more accurate, but
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so if you're in Winnipeg, Ashdown Market, go support it. It's in the Exchange on
Bannatyne, right beside Hermanos.
Bannatyne McDermott.
Yeah, 171 Bannatyne Avenue.
Yeah, right beside Hermanos. And you can get groceries. You can get fresh meat. You can get fresh produce. You can get weed. I mean, it's pretty much a one-stop shop.
Yeah, and if you like tobacco and nicotine, you can get that too. So.
You can get that too. Yes, but we do not endorse smoking on this podcast,
unless it's weed.
Yes, because we like to be healthy here. But go support Ashdown Market. Safeway, they don't know you were there. Ashdown Market, 2-3 visits max, and they'll know your name. Okay, so thanks for stopping in and sharing it with us. I know a lot of entrepreneurs out there, especially new entrepreneurs, will benefit from this conversation, and guess what it'll do? It'll make them better. So there we go. All right, guys, see you soon.
Thanks for checking out Better. If you get a chance, subscribe. Hopefully, together, we'll make the world a much better place.